Hey everybody, I'm back here. I'm going to show you guys how to do a more in-depth video on how to make the flux paste as well as the liquid flux. Okay, so flux paste, liquid flux, and I'm going to show you how to do it from chunks of pine rosin to grounding up the rosin to a finer powder. Makes it a lot easier and faster to dissolve. I'm going to show you the method that I use to heat it up and make it from start to finish. You can get this these rosin chips online for very inexpensive. Just this stuff here, this amber looking stuff, super cheap online. Or if you want to take it a step further and you have some pine trees near where you live, you can go collect the sap off the pine trees. But if you do that, there's another pretty messy step involved to turn it into this. If that's a step you want to see me do, let me know in the comments and I will be more than glad to do another more in-depth video on how to do that. So I am fully prepared here. I got all my ingredients, fire extinguisher, beautiful pink apron, and always wear glasses or safety glasses, any type of glasses to shield your eyes from any harmful vapors or anything that could splash, anything like that. And just use common sense when you're doing this, because you're working with very hot water, you're working with a hot burner, you're working with two flammable substances. You got the isopropyl rubbing alcohol, and you got the rosin, which is another flammable substance. And once they start burning, it's not the easiest thing to put out. So make sure you have an up-to-date proper fire extinguisher near you and some common sense. And last but not least, I don't recommend anybody do this under the age of 18. In fact, if you're under the age of 18 and you want to do something like this, don't do it unless you have a parent or supervision from someone over the age of 18 or older who has common sense on how to use a fire extinguisher and just common sense in general. And last but not least, just to cover myself, I don't recommend anybody do this at home. One more time, I don't recommend anybody do this at home. That's just to cover myself, okay? So like I said, today I'm going to show you how to do both paste and liquid flux, okay? So you're going to need a medium-sized pot. Fill it just a little less than halfway with water. Bring it to a rolling boil. And then once you get it to a rolling boil, turn it down to simmer and just let it simmer, because the boiling point of alcohol obviously is a bit lower than water. So you don't need the water at a rolling boil, just a decent simmer, and it won't take long to cook up, okay? So you're also gonna need a jar, about a medium-sized glass jar with the lid to vent. You want it to vent, that's very important to have a vent, okay? And like I said, this is just the way I do it. I know there's other ways to do it, but this is the way I do it, and that's what I'm showing you, okay? So a medium-sized glass jar. And this tool here is made for jarring. I like to use this because it takes my hands away from the very hot water and all the hot stuff. And I use this to put it in and to take it out. It's a good tool to have. I recommend anybody have something like this if they're gonna do this kind of thing, okay? So I got the rosin, which I ground up into a fine powder. Obviously it's gonna stick together and harden up like this. It did that to me, but I went ahead and pre-measured out what I need. I'm gonna do a small recipe this time because I do have a lot of this stuff already. This is for demonstration purposes only. So basically, if you want to do the paste, my recipe is 3 parts of the rosin, the powdered rosin, or you can use the unpowdered stuff. It's just going to take a little bit longer. But 3 parts of the rosin to 1 part of your alcohol, okay? And you're going to put that in the jar. So I have 3 tablespoons of the rosin. Don't let this chunk foil you. It's powder. It'll dissolve quick, especially in the boiling water. And then, so that's 3 parts rosin. That's a little over 3 parts, just a little. So I'm going to do a little over 1 part of the alcohol. Okay. water's at a rolling boil, so I'm going to go ahead and turn it down to about a 3.5 or 4. Seal this up. Can't stress enough, make sure you have a vent on the lid somewhere. This lid works perfectly. It's a perfect size slot for that. You're going to want to take it, go ahead and set it in there, possibly a little more gentle than I did. And while that's cooking away and boiling, I want to go ahead and show you what I did here for the liquid flux. Okay, this is a pretty much finished liquid flux that I made, and the recipe is, it's just reversed. Okay, so if you want to do the liquid flux, the finished product liquid flux, you're going to want to do exactly opposite. Okay, so you're going to want 1 part flux, 1 part rosin to 3 parts of your alcohol. Okay, and you really don't need to cook that stuff off. You can cook it, but you don't need to. Okay, all you want to do is just get whatever jar or dispenser you want, put 1 part of the rosin in there, 3 parts of the alcohol, you know, let it sit for a day, shake it up, bam, you're good to go. It's that easy. It is that easy, my friends. That's for the liquid flux. And once you get done with your paste, you can put it into these handy dandy syringes. You can get these on eBay all day long with the needle tips as well. I have some of those. Not here with me today, but I do have them. And these work really good for dispensing this stuff. I don't know who came up with that, but it's beautiful and it works great. So I'm going to go ahead and check my mixture, see how it's doing. Well, it's getting there. So I'll be right back when it's done, and I'll show you guys what it looks like. Alright, looks like the time's up, folks. Now it took about a good 15 minutes of nice consistent heat and boil for the alcohol. Like I said, the water is just at a simmer the whole time, and it actually it melted fairly quickly, and so you can go ahead and turn off your heat now, and we'll pull her on out. Be very careful. Go ahead and set it away from the hot part of the stove. And using a nice thick glove or towel, I'm going to go ahead and pick this up, swirl it around, and as you can see, it's fully dissolved. So now I'm going to go ahead and just let that sit for a good 24 to 48 hours. And in 24 to 48 hours, I will have flux paste. It's gonna come out. I don't have one of the needles with me, but that's the consistency of it. Okay? Good consistency. Works really good. I have no complaints. I do clean my circuit boards, but I tested one out where I didn't clean it, and it's still good. It looks great. No issues with it. Doesn't leave too much tacky stickiness. Works out really good. Like I said, I use this pure alcohol, or 70% anyway, to go ahead and clean it up, just to be on the thorough side. Okay. So anyhow, up next, I'll be showing you guys how well this stuff works. I'll demonstrate on a circuit board, some pads. I'll do a couple wires for you and show you how good this stuff works. Okay, so we'll see you here in a little bit, and yeah. Okay, so we're back at the workbench with some finished product to kind of show you guys how well the flux actually works. I'm going to test it against some other products, some Harris water soluble flux. I'm going to do some computer system CX flux, liquid flux for BGA rework, Made in Greece Laboratory, produced by Computer Systems Incorporated. Dragomi, oh, it's the address and all that good stuff. You can find this at www.computer-systems.gr. You can also find it on eBay or Amazon. This is my homespun flux paste. This is that liquid flux that you just watched me make. And here's the flux paste in the jar that you guys watched me make. I also, just for shits and giggles, I made some out of a different type of tree sap. Just, just to see if it can be done. Kind of pointless, but this is it anyway. I used Douglas fir sap. It's quite a bit different looking than the other stuff. It's like a lot more clear and syrupy. And for the sake of doing it, I'm also going to do, I know this has been done by a couple other guys, but for the sake of doing it, I'm just going to do a little bit of Vaseline, okay? Just so you guys can kind of see what works the best out of everything. And yeah, so let's get going. So first off, I have some 18 gauge braided copper wire here. Some more 18 gauge braided copper wire in black. And then some 20 gauge solid copper wire. And I'm also going to use some of the bigger pads on these boards for demonstration purposes to kind of see which flux work better. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put the solder on the soldering iron. I'm going to let all the flux burn out. I'll have some flux on the pad, and then I'll touch the solder down onto the pad. So I'm going to make sure all the rosin that's in the core of the flux burns out before I try to touch it to the pad, okay? So with the first test, I'm going to use the Computer Systems CS Flux. I'm going to put it on this first pad right here. I apologize, my camera doesn't zoom in very much more, but in my next couple of videos I'm going to get my other camera up and working so you guys will be able to see it a lot better. So there's a CS Flux. Okay. Let's put some solder on the iron. Let the flux burn out of it. Let it smoke off. Okay, safe to say there's no more flux in there. So let's touch it to the pad now. Beautiful. Tin the pad beautifully. Okay. Now, let's get some rubbing alcohol. A Q-tip. Clean that off. Okay. Now you guys just watched me clean that off, but I'm going to go to the other side of this just in case. Now we're going to do this pad here, and we're going to do this with the Harris water soluble flux, lead free, although the solder I'm using is not lead free. It's the hardcore leaded stuff. Poison, I tell you, poison. All right, so let's get a little dapper of this stuff on there. Okay, so we got a little dip of the Harris water soluble flux on there. Clean out the soldering iron. Put some solder on it. Let the flux burn out of it. Put a little bit more solder on there actually. Let the flux smoke off. safe to say. Alright, the flux is pretty well burnt off. So now let's go ahead and touch it to the pad with the Harris Flux on it. Beautiful. Pretty much the same result as we got with the last one. Okay. I'm going to do the same thing. Come in here and clean it off with this alcohol. Okay. Now I'm going to let those dry where I had the alcohol and clean them off, and I'll use a new one. Just so you guys don't think I'm using the same flux for these pads. Now, I use those two fluxes. Now I'm going to go ahead and try some of the liquid flux that I made. Or you know what? Actually, I take that back. Let's try some of the Vaseline. So just for the sake of trying it, I'll put a dab of Vaseline right there. That's going to be on this pad right here. Okay. Let's get some solder up on that iron. Let all the flux smoke out of it. Okay. Pretty well smoked out. Now let's touch it to the pad with the petroleum jelly Vaseline. Oh yeah, see. So this is what it ended up doing. Let me bring it a little closer to the camera. See that? Hold on. See that? It definitely didn't bond as good as the first two fluxes. It is Vaseline, however, so I definitely wasn't expecting it to do very great. Okay. So that's the Vaseline. Focus. Okay. And now we'll try the flux that I made out of the other tree sap I was telling you all about. That's this stuff right here. Get a little dab of that sticky stuff. Go ahead and put it on there. Okay, put some solder on the iron tip. Let the flux smoke off so it's not giving the pad any help. The only thing that should be helping the pad is the flux. Okay. Now let's touch it to the pad. I'm actually really surprised right now. That worked really good. That actually looks really good. Keep in mind I had quite a bit of solder on there, but that actually looks really good. I'm going to clean it up and then I'm going to bring it closer to the camera so you guys can see it better. I'm going to mark it real quick. I'm going to mark it number 3. Okay. Yeah, that actually did a really good job. Look at that. Interesting. Come on, focus. Focus. Well, it focused the first time, so you got a good idea of how good it looked. Apologize for the shaky camera, but yeah, that's that's the other tree sap I use. That's not pine resin. That's from a Douglas fir. All right, now let's try, let's go to the other side of this. Focus. Okay. Now we'll try this one here, and we'll do the homemade flux paste. That's this stuff you guys just watched me make. Still in this big jar. So I'm gonna go ahead and get some out of there. Still a little runny. In a couple more days it'll be a lot less runny. It'll be a lot more thicker, like your normal flux paste, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and get something I could put that on there with. Here. All right. Okay. So I got that on the pad. Stuff's pretty messy. Clean off the soldering iron tip. Put some solder on there. Let the flux smoke on off of it. And this is the homemade flux paste y'all just watched me make prior to this. This is with the pine rosin and the isopropyl alcohol. Alright, now let's touch it to the pad. Beautiful. As I expected. Beautiful. I'm going to clean it off so you guys can see it better. And this is number 4. While I'm down here though, I'm going to go ahead and do the liquid flux that I made too, okay? And I'm just going to do that right up here on one of these. And then I'll bring it up to show y'all. Alright, how am I going to do this? Oh yeah, I got it in the squirter bottle here. So I'm just going to put a little bit down on this pad here. Gonna put some solder on the tip. Let all the flux smoke out of it, so it's not helping. Okay. Now let's go ahead and touch it down on the pad. I did 2 beds. It's liquid flux, so it kind of went all over. But yeah, looks good. Clean them up. And label that 5. Okay. All right, now I'll bring it up there for y'all to see. All right, so this one right here, that's the homemade flux paste. And these 3 right here, I kind of drag soldered because it's liquid flux, so it kind of went all over the place. But yeah, I got these 3 tinned up nicely. And that's from the homemade pine rosin and isopropyl alcohol. I went ahead and cooked it. You guys saw in the last part of the video. So if you're just seeing this video at this point, I recommend going to the beginning and seeing how it's made. But yeah, it works really good, as you can see, with tinning pads. Now I'm going to show you guys how well it tins wires, braided and solid copper. Focus. Okay. So right here, we got some black braided 18 gauge wire. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and dip it in the flux paste like so. Get some solder on the iron. Let it burn out all the flux. This is probably going to burn my hand. Let's get it in some pliers. Alright, so the flux is pretty well burnt out. Now here's the 18 gauge braided copper wire, black. Yeah. Looks fun, looks great. Tin it up in seconds. Probably less than a second there. So that's the 18 gauge braided black copper wire right there. Now we'll do the 18 gauge braided red copper wire with the paste. Glurp some of it up on there like so. Clean up the iron. Get some leaded solder on there. Let all the flux from the rosin core smoke out so it doesn't help from the tinning process. The only thing that should be helping in the tinning process is the homemade flux paste we have on the wire here. Okay. That's pretty well burnt out. Now let's go ahead and tin this guy. Yeah, you do get quite a bit of smoke at first, but yeah, it does the trick. As you can see, it is tinned, and it's tinned very nicely. Okay, next up, we're going to go ahead and do 20 gauge solid copper core wire. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to use the homemade flux paste on it. Go ahead and glurp it on there. Really don't need that much, holy moly. Okay. Clean off the iron tip. Get some more nice leaded solder on there. Let all the flux smoke out of it, like I said, so we're not helping the tinning process. Okay. I know solid wire, sometimes you got to run it up and down, but we'll see how this goes. All right, here we go. Yep. Awesome. Just as I was hoping. Worked great. I will do a close-up on these once I'm done, just so you guys can see it. Now, since I tinned one side of them with the paste, I'm going to go ahead and tin the other side with the liquid flux. See, this is the one that you guys just watched me make, okay? I just didn't have it in a dropper bottle, that's why I was using the other one, but it is the same exact stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to dip it in here so you guys can see. Okay, so first up is going to be the 18 gauge black braided copper wire. I'm going to go ahead and dip it in there. Okay. Clean off the soldering iron tip. Get some solder up on there. And like every other time before, I'm going to let all that rosin flux smoke out of it, so it's not cheating. So we're not cheating. Okay, it's pretty well smoked out. Now let's go ahead and touch it to the braided copper wire. Beautiful. That went a lot quicker than I thought it was going to go, actually. So that was beautifully done. Now let's do the 18 gauge braided red copper. We're just going to dip it into the liquid flux, the homemade liquid flux. Then we're going to do the same thing as we just did. Clean off the iron tip. Get some fresh leaded solder on there. Let all the rosin burn out of it so it's not helping in the tinning process. Did I dip this already? I don't remember dipping it. Okay, so it's dipped in the homemade stuff. It's pretty well smoked out, so let's go ahead and tin this wire now. Beautiful. Quick, easy peasy. Now let's see how it does with the 20 gauge solid copper core wire. Clean out that tip. Go ahead and get some leaded solder on there. Let all that rosin burn out of it, the rosin core. Let's dip this solid copper wire into the homemade flux. It's pretty well smoked out. Now let's tin it. Beautiful. Okay, so those are all tinned up nicely. All right, so I'm going to show you guys a close-up of these right quick. Okay. Come on, don't fall. Where are we at? Okay. So as you can see, this side of the wires, that was with the flux paste. This side was with the liquid flux. Beautifully done. That's the homemade stuff. See? So there we are. And now next, just for the sake of doing it, focus. Just for the sake of doing it, I'm gonna show you guys how well some of the other stuff works. Okay, so I'm gonna do the same test with the CS flux here. I'm gonna go ahead and put it on the red braided 18 gauge copper wire. Okay, that's a fair amount there. I'm actually going to take a little bit of that off and put it on the black too, so we can do 2 wires with it. Okay. So this is with the computer stuff, the CS flux here. And this is the red braided 18 gauge copper wire. Come on. So we're going to melt some leaded solder on there. Let all the flux come out of it. Alright, so this is a CS flux on the braided 18 gauge copper wire. Good job. I'd expect it to do a good job. Looks good. A little less smoke than the homemade stuff. That's to be expected. Still trying to kind of figure out what ingredient they use to be able to get less smoke. But that was a good one. Now we'll go ahead and do the same with the black braided wire. I got some of the CS Flux on it as well. Get some, come on, this solder is crap. Get some leaded solder on the tip. Okay. Let all that flux burn out of it. All right, now tin this on. Yeah, good work. That worked good. That was expected. I would expect that to work good. I'm gonna go ahead and skip the solid because we know it'll work. So, but I will. I am gonna do the Harris water soluble flux and try that with both of the braided wires. So first off, I'm gonna do the 18 gauge red copper wire here. Go ahead and dip it on in there. Okay. Same step as I've been doing all along. Get some leaded solder on that tip. Let it smoke off. Get all the flux on out of there. Let it burn off. Okay. Now go ahead and tin this wire up. This is the Harris. Great work. That was great. That's some good stuff. That tinned it up real nice and fast. Got to give it to the Harris. So far, it's been the best. I mean, that's better than everything so far. But, you know, it's commercially manufactured stuff, so you're probably going to get those kind of results. And you didn't get much burning smoke from it either. So I really do like this Harris stuff. If I'm going to buy any, it's going to be this Harris stuff. Although I probably won't be buying any because the homemade stuff works just fine for me. It does let off a pine smell, so if you're not into the pine smell, then you probably won't like it. The homemade stuff I'm talking about. I love the smell of pine, so it doesn't bother me. All right, so here's the 18 gauge black braided copper wire with the Harris on it. Oh, beautiful. Yeah, that Harris works great. I mean, that works very, very good. For the sake of it, I'm going to actually do some of the 20 gauge solid core copper wire with the Harris, just to see how well it works with the solid core stuff. I'm sure it'll work just fine. Okay, let's get some solder on that tip. Okay. Pretty well smoked off. All right, let's get that going. Wow. Man, it's just instantaneous with this Harris stuff. I mean, it just a quick psst, and it just tins it right away. I love it. That stuff works great. Wow. Kudos to you, Harris. Here's the Harris stuff right here. You can get this at Home Depot, Lowe's, any hardware store. You can get it online. I'm not sponsored by them or anybody, but it works really good. I like it. So hey guys, sorry about that. The video kind of cut out in the last part there. What I was saying was I was really impressed with this Harris Flux. Works really great. It's very, very fair priced. You can get it pretty cheap at Home Depot, Lowe's, pretty much any hardware store, online at Amazon or eBay or any major retailer. It's pretty good stuff. I highly recommend it. But with that being said, I hope everyone is having a great holiday season. Have a Merry Christmas, a Happy Hanukkah, or whatever it is you celebrate. Have a Happy New Year, and I hope to see you guys again soon. Leave a thumbs up if this is helpful in any way. Maybe think about subscribing. There will be a lot more cool videos, cool and fun videos. And like I said, for every 100 subscribers, there will be a giveaway. The 100th subscriber will get something cool, something electronically cool, and I will send it to you, and you should get it within a few weeks, depending on where you live. If you're in the States, shouldn't be much longer than a couple weeks. If you're over the pond, it might take a little longer, but hey, we'll see how it goes when we get there. We're not even close to 100 subscribers yet. Anyhow, take care, everybody. Until next time, Spanky Pancakes is out.